Hi, third graders. So we've been working through chapter 2, which is all about addition and its properties. And we are on lesson 6. And our essential question is, how can place value help me add larger numbers? You should be on page 93. And this is a hands-on lesson. So it's very fun, and we're going to use models to add. So our instructions are to use a place value chart and base 10 blocks to model 3-digit addition with regrouping. To regroup means to rename a number using place value. Okay, well, let's break down what that means with an example. While on a trip, Rosa counted 148 red cars and 153 green cars. How many total cars did Rosa count? In other words, we're finding 148 plus 153. Okay, so we learned how to estimate sums in the previous lesson. So we're starting with that. So it says our first step is to estimate the sum, okay? So it doesn't tell us what to round to, but we know to estimate, we usually round. So what we could do here is round our tens place. I'm just making this decision arbitrarily, which means I'm just making it because I want to. So 148, if we're rounding, I've circled the tens, I'm looking over to the ones, I'm seeing the 8 is 5 or greater, which means I'm rounding my tens up, which means the 1 stays the same. The 4 increases by 1 digit or by the value of 10, so it becomes 150 because the 8 turns to a 0. In other words, 148 is closer to 150 than it is to 140. So I've circled my 50, my 5 that is representative of my 50. I'm looking to the digit to the right to see 3 is 4 or less, which means I'm rounding my tens place down, which means this digit actually stays the same. So 1 stays the same, the 5 stays the same, but the 3 turns to a 0. In other words, 150 is close, or 153 is closer to 150 than it is to 160. So now really we're adding 150 plus 150. And I know that 50 and 50 make 100, and 100 and 100 is 200. So I'm adding 200 plus 100. And I know 2 plus 1 is 3, so I know that 200 plus 100 is 300. Okay, so now we're going to model this, which means we're going to use some things we can touch and see to help us understand the value of these numbers and what we're really doing with our addition problem here. So it says to model 148 plus 153. Draw your models at the right. Use a for hundreds, so a square for hundreds, this line for tens, and a square for ones. I like to use a square for hundreds. I don't like to do the whole long rectangle for tens because I think it's kind of hard, but I like to use just like almost like a one looking thing, just a line for my tens, and for ones I tend to do dots. So we're gonna model this number in our chart here. So let's start with 148. Well, there's 100 in this number. There's 4 tens. And there are 8 ones. Okay, so that's 148, 148. And now we're going to model 153. Let me see. 100. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 3. Okay, so this is representative of the same value as 143 and 153. And now we are going to add the ones. So in other words, and then it says regroup 10 ones as 1 1. So, okay, so in other words, we're looking for, is there any 10s that we can regroup here? Like these 10s are just 10 of our ones stacked together. So can we stack these to make any 10s in here? And that way it's easier to see, easier to add. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, we have one left over, but I'm gonna take my 10 and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 10s here, and they've added another 10 here because there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There are 10 10s here, and that is because they have taken these ones and moved them to our 10s. So our next instruction is to draw your models. So I think what they're saying is now to redraw your models. So if I were to move these 10 ones over here, well, now I still have 200s. That has not changed. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 10s. And now I only have one little leftover one here. So now it's a little bit easier to see. Just looking at this is kind of hard to clearly tell or very quickly tell how much is here. But now it's a little bit easier because I see I have 2 hundreds, 10 10s, and 1 1. So now we are going to look at our 10s and see if we can do the same thing with our 10s. In other words, if we can regroup our 10s into hundreds. So it's a little tricky because it's on the other page, but I'm going to flip back actually. So on page 93 where we drew this out, we said we have 10 10s. Well, what is 10 times 10? Or in other words, 10 groups of 10. That's 100. Okay, so we know that just like how we grouped 10 ones and moved it over to our 10s place, you could probably do that here. So let's try that. So, yeah, actually I'm going to draw on here. I'm so sorry for the flipping back and forth. So I want you to circle your 10s. And there's actually none left over because we have 10 10s, and they would go to make 100. Because 100 is 10 times the value of 10. So if you have 10 of them, that's the same thing as 100. So now, if I redraw this and regroup, I have 300s and 1 1. So let's draw that on page 94. 300s and I said 0 10, so we're not going to put anything in there, and 1 1. So it says regroup 10 10s as 100. Draw your models below. So there are how many hundreds? 1, 2, 3, 3 hundreds, 0 10s, and 1 1. So 148 plus 153 is 301. Okay, so let's check if this is reasonable. In other words, does this make sense? Is this a crazy answer, or is this somewhere in the ballpark? Ask yourself if the answer makes sense. Is your answer reasonable? 301 is close to the estimate of 300. So if we look back, when we estimated our answer, before we even really added up these two numbers, we just made a general answer by rounding to the nearest 10, and we estimated, okay, it's about 300. When we did the actual exact math by modeling, we got 301. So this is the value of of making an estimate. It tells me, it lets me check if this is reasonable. So in other words, does my real answer that we calculated match or is very close to my estimate? Yeah. And sometimes that it's only a difference of 1 in this situation. Sometimes it's going to be more and sometimes it's going to be less. And you will get a feel for that as you do more of this, whether or not your answer is reasonable. So because 301 is close to the estimate of 300, it makes sense. The answer is reasonable. So now we're going to kind of verbalize why this makes sense. So it says, explain how you know you need to regroup. Well, that's actually kind of a hard question. So I'm not gonna make you guys write this out, truthfully. So actually, because I'm not even gonna write this out, but let's talk about how do you know when you need to regroup? Well, we knew that we needed to regroup when we had 10 ones, because that's the same thing as 110. We knew that we needed to regroup when we had 10 tens, because that's the same value as 100. So when your value in one group can be, it can be regrouped when you have enough to create the value in the next place value over. It's kind of a tricky concept, but like I said, the more you practice it, the more you'll understand it. And that kind of answers our question too. Why were the tens and ones regrouped? And our third question is, tell whether or not you need to regroup when finding the sum of 147 and 214. So tell whether or not you need to regroup when finding the sum of 147 and 214. Well, I actually think this might be a good opportunity for us to model what this looks like on a real place value chart. I'm trying to fit as much in as possible, but so I have this flipped out here. I have hundreds, tens, and ones. And so I think we should build our number. So it's asking us to add 147 and 214. So I know that this is 100, and so I'm going to put that into the hundreds place. So that is from 147. I know there's 100 and 147. And then we're adding 214, and I know that there are 200s and 214. So now I have 300s. Okay, let's move on to adding our tens. 147 has 4 tens. So 1, 2, 3, 4 tens, and 214 only has 1 10. Oops, so I'm adding 1 10. In total now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tens. And now when we look at our ones, that's probably the thing that's going to tell us whether or not we need to regroup in this number. Because so far we don't have 10 tens, so there's no reason to regroup because we don't have 100, the value of 100 in tens yet. So now we're going to look at our ones. And in 247, our ones are 7 ones. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in 214, we have 4 ones. So I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, 4. So now, I wonder if I have enough to regroup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, Are there enough to regroup into 110? There are, and we would have 1 left here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, oops, I want to move this so you can see it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can see it's the same. It's the same value.